Hey there, welcome into this Adobe Illustrator video brought to you as always by tutvid.com. If you're new around here, my name is Nathaniel Dodson, and today we're going to take a look at creating this sort of spiraling Trinity spiral effect, whatever you want to call it. It's really cool. It's a little complicated. There's some stuff where we're going to kind of get down and dirty when it comes to some of the stroking and pathfinding and layering of things, but it's a really neat effect. I think you'll really enjoy it. Now, I got to give a big shout out. I saw this effect on Dribble by an artist. I believe her name was Tatiana Bishek or something like that. If I'm mispronouncing your name, I'm really sorry. Point is, I've got a link to her Instagram down in the bio of this video. You got to check it out. Really, really cool stuff that she's creating. And this is just one example of it. So I wanted to try my hand at recreating it in Illustrator, show you how I do it. And without further ado, let's jump into this video. All right, here we are in Adobe Illustrator. Now, I have a document open, but I'm working with, if I go File, New, I'm working with a 2560 by 1440 sized document. You can really go with anything you like. That's just what I'm working with. All right, what I want to do here is get rid of my fill. So I'm going to hit the little slash icon to get rid of the fill. And for the stroke, I'm going to double-click the stroke. And let's just, let's create sort of a nice bluish colored stroke, just something that's going to be easy to see. Then I'm going to click on my rectangle tool, hold down, and select the ellipse tool, and click a single time and create a 70 pixel by 70 pixel ellipse. I'll hit OK, and there it is. We can probably zoom in on that a little bit to really see what we're working on, because we're about to, things are about to get interesting here. Now that we have our first ellipse, the basis of our entire effect, we are going to go Effect, Distort and Transform, and choose Transform. Here in the Transform panel, I want to make this a bit larger. So I'm going to extend this horizontally and vertically. I'm going to scale it up 235%. Now, if I turn on Preview, you're going to see we're creating this much larger circle. Problem is, I'm losing the inner circle. See, it's just pushing that out. So I'm going to say, hey, copies, make one copy. Now I'm retaining the inner circle, and I'm boosting the sort of the secondary stroke outward, and I'm going to shut off scale, strokes, and effects. So it's just both the 1 point stroke on both ellipses we've got created. We're going to be changing all that stuff later. This is just for continuity's sake right now. All right, I'm going to hit OK. And now this is two paths that are kind of stuck inside of one group. And it's not really a group, it's just sort of a shape group, if you will. And you can see that because I just have sort of the center circle selected by the bounding box, but the outer circle is like stuck to it. So we're going to unstick it by going Object and saying Expand Appearance. Now we've got everything enveloped in our transform box. If I go to my layers, I can see I've got this ellipse, and sure enough, it's these two groups here within this. Okay, I'll collapse that. And we want to take this ellipse group here, and we want to transform this. So we're going to go Effect, and we don't want to hit Apply Transform. That would do the same exact thing that we just did. Instead, I want to go, give me the transform box all over again. And I'm going to go ahead and preview this, and you can see it's given us this giant looking thing. We don't want this. I'm going to set my horizontal and vertical scale back to 100, and I'm going to move this horizontally and vertically. So I'm going to move it 59 pixels horizontally and 102 pixels vertically. Now, I've just picked that out. It's a note I have, so I know exactly where it's going. And I can see, boom, it's popping itself right down where I want it. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, this is again within this group. So I'm going to go Object, Expand the Appearance. And in this case, I will go Object, Ungroup. And you can see I have two groups, each of which contain two circles. That's great. All right, I'm going to grab the top group again. So it's those two paths, the two ellipses, the two circles. And I'm going to go Effect, Transform once again. I want to do the same exact thing, but I want to drop this series of circles over here off to the left of our little setup. So instead of pushing it 59 pixels horizontally, which pushes 59 pixels to the right, I'm going to say negative 59 pixels, which is going to push it to the left and give us this effect. I'm going to hit OK. And once again, Object, Expand Appearance, and then Object, Ungroup. And we've got three beautiful little groups all organized perfectly on our artboard. Now, at this point, we want to begin working with these paths all individually. So with everything still selected, I'm going to go Object and choose Ungroup. And now you can see here in my Layers panel, we just have 6 paths. They're all of our paths that we created. I'm going to go ahead and boost the stroke up to 35 points because this is the size of our shapes, right? Now, they're all strokes, so they're going to be a little more difficult to work with, but don't worry. We want to just create sort of the skeletal framework of what we're doing, and then we're going to build out the effect on top of this. So this is the base of our entire effect right here. Now what I'm going to do with all of these paths selected, I'm going to go Edit Copy and then choose Edit Paste in Front. So now we have another copy of this on top of everything. See, if I drag it away, we got a copy of it. I'm going to undo that because what I want to do is make this stroke a 1 point again. So I'm going to say go back to a 1 point stroke, and then I'll make it something I can see. So maybe we'll go with like a green or something, right? And you can see how that's on top of everything. So I'm going to select that again. I probably have to make it a green again because I undid it. And I'm going to group all of these together, just all of the green strokes by going Object, Group. Remember, they're all selected. Now you may notice down here in the layers panel, it looks like everything's green. It's not. It's just a weird bug in Illustrator where the thumbnails in the layers panel don't update right away. In fact, if I take this group of actual green ellipses and shut it off, you can see we're just left with all blue ellipses, which are all these guys. Okay, since I shut off that top set of rings, I actually do want to leave it off because we're going to use it for guides later on. You'll see exactly how we're using it. What I'm going to do at this point is select all these blue rings that I have, and we want to expand them from strokes to fills. So I'm going to go Object. I'm going to say, hey, give me an expand. I'm going to expand all of my strokes, and it's going to expand them out to fills to give us all these donut shapes that are no longer strokes. They're all fills. We could now apply another stroke. You can see in the tools panel, yep, there you go. It's now all a fill, and there is no stroke applied to any of these 6 shapes. Let's go ahead and just ungroup all these rings. You can see how they're all grouped up, probably just because there's a compound shape in there. Let's go Object Ungroup. They're still a group, so it's just GR. Maybe I'll expand my layers panel a little bit. See, they're all just still groups. So let's go Object Ungroup again, and there we go. Now all compound shapes. Just break them down to sort of their base level so we get rid of all that extra junk that could be confusing for us later. Now what I'm going to do is begin adding some color and gradients. I'm going to begin with my top center ring, and I'm going to fill it with a black to white gradient. Now, before we do this, before you click this, note that our stroke is pulled to the fore here, right? It's pulled to the foreground. So if I apply this gradient, it's going to apply the gradient to the stroke. I don't want that. I want to make sure I click on my fill swatch, bring that to the fore, and then hit the gradient, and then it's going to fill the fill with our gradient and nothing else. So what I want to do here is change the colors here in my gradient. So I'm going to double click on the white color stop. I'm going to go to the flyout menu, choose RGB because I can punch in my hexadecimal code here and I have it written down. I'm going to go CD6F 8C. So it's this kind of flat, you know, not really salmon, I guess heading in the direction of salmony pink. Then I'm going to double click on the black color stop. Again, through the flyout menu, go RGB. Double click here to add a new hexadecimal code. And here I'm going to go D69229. And this is this kind of flat orange color. So there's our first gradient. All right, we're going to select the left ring right here. Again, I'm going to fill this with a gradient. So I'm going to select my gradient swatch. It's going to give me the same gradient. No worries. We're going to change it up. I'm going to double click that. Here for the hex code, I'm going to change this to 75B5FE. So it's this very light blue. Then I'm going to double click on the orange color stop. And I'm going to fill this with B1FB. What are my last two? E3, I believe it is. Yeah, there we go. So a very, very light cyan. And I'm going to change the angle of this here. I'm going to change it to a negative 90-degree angle to put the blue at the top and the very light cyan color at the bottom. Then I'm going to select the bottom rightmost ring. I'm going to fill this with a gradient. Double click first on the bluish color stop here. And I'm going to make this hexadecimal code EC, E3 for B. So you can see it's kind of a flat yellow color. Go over here to our cyan color. And here I am going to make this CC6FBE. And you can see that's kind of this pink color. And you know what? I might go back. Maybe this yellow. We'll use this yellow later. I don't want to use that right now. I want this to be more of a blue. Let's try like a 5D 8C FB, maybe something like that. And that'll give us a nice blue. And I'm going to set this to the angle. Let's go negative 110 degrees. So we're pushing the blue up to the top right corner and dropping our pink down into the bottom left corner. I kind of like that. So those are our initial gradients for our outer rings. Now with the inner rings, I'm going to select these. For the top ring, we're going to give it that same yellow color that we just used a moment ago that we decided against. We're going to color this ring that. So up here in the color panel, we can again punch in a hexadecimal code. So we're going to go EC E34B. So that's that yellow. Let's go to the leftmost ring here. Let's go for this one, B6 EB4F. And that's more of a green. Oh, you know what? Actually, the green should be over here. Let's grab our eyedropper and just sample that over. And for this over here, we want this to be more of an orange. So let's go with DA-A22C. And that should be a nice orange for us. Now that we have all of our colors, let's apply a stroke to all of our shapes here and begin really starting to flesh out this effect. It's going to move kind of quick here and things are going to get a little sort of meticulous and we need to pay attention to the details here to get this all right. So select all the shapes. We're going to apply a stroke. I'm going to apply a 10-point stroke. All right. It looks really bad. Don't worry. The first thing I'm going to do is select the word stroke and say, look, I want to align the stroke to the inside. All right. So something like that. All right. Clean it up. Not looking bad, but still not quite necessarily good. Let's click on the stroke color here on our properties panel. I'm going to select the little palette and here in the hex code, I'm going to use a 4E4C71 color. It's kind of like a dark flat, maybe navy bluish type color. All right. If I deselect everything, we get an idea of the color scheme. I'm kind of digging it. Before before we go any further, I'm going to collapse my properties panel. I want to make sure I stack these layers correctly. And granted, it's going to be difficult here because Illustrator is not refreshing my thumbnails. So what you might want to do is just double click on your layers tab like that, and then double click again. And you can see by reopening the layers panel, you're going to get an updated view of everything you've got going on. So what I want at the very bottom, I want my large top ring. So I'm going to select this and I'm just going to drag it to the bottom. That needs to be on the very bottom. Next up, I need the large left ring. That's this blue one. That one's got to be right on top of that. And then sort of the blue, pinkish, purplish one, that one's got to be in third place, if you will. Then the smaller left ring, that's the orange guy. That one's got to be here as the lowest of the small rings. And then the top ring. And then finally at the very top should be the green ring. So this is kind of how your layers panel should look if you're following along with the exact colors that I'm using. And the stacking is going to be important here in a minute, as you're going to see. Now at this point, we need to draw sort of the little arms that are going to connect our circles together and give us this effect that everything's weaving amongst itself. And this is where we're going to turn on our guide group again. And the green might be a little difficult to see. Maybe I'll select it and make it like a blue or something like that. I think maybe a blue would be a little easier to see on top of this. Maybe, maybe not. Point is, what I want to do here is go view and make sure smart guides are turned on. And then also turn on snap to point. I don't know if we're going to need it, but just in case we do, it's nice to turn that on. If we do end up using it, I'll explain exactly how it works. All right, so we want to zoom in on this. And now the goal is going to be, if I select this and I grab my direct selection tool, we can see the anchor points. The goal is going to be to connect this anchor point right here on the left of the yellow circle to this anchor point here on the left of the green circle. That's going to be our first shape. The second one is going to go from the right side of the yellow circle to the right side of the orange circle. And then the third one doesn't make a lot of sense, but just you got to trust me here. We're going to go from the left side of the green to the bottom center of this sort of cyan blue larger circle. So those are the three paths that we're going to create now with the pen tool. So I'm going to go ahead with the pen tool, grab it. I just have a blue stroke. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. I'm going to hover over that anchor point. Now you can see that my icon is the pen tool plus the minus, which is saying if you click, you're going to delete this anchor point. Well, I don't want to delete an anchor point. So I'm going to hold down Shift, which is going to allow me to create a new path, click and drag straight down, maybe until my tangent handle is right about there. And then I'm going to move down over here until I'm connecting with my other anchor point. I actually need to zoom in on this here because there's two anchor points very, very close together. I don't want the outer anchor point. I want the inner anchor point. There we go. Hold down Shift again. And I'm just going to pull this up. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for my path to follow the path that's already in place. So let me just hit the Enter key real quick to just commit the changes of that path. I'm going to grab my direct selection tool and I'm actually going to change the color of the stroke here so we can see what's going on. I'm going to change it to maybe, let's change it to a green. We just went from a green, but I'm going to go back to green here. Green's probably a bad idea. I'm going to go with an orange because that contrasts everything we have. So this path, I kind of want it to follow the blue path here. So with my direct selection tool, I'm going to grab this little tangent handle, hold down Shift, and I'm going to pull it straight up until it's roughly following that point. I want to make sure that it's coming into my green circle here at the proper angle. And now I can hold down Shift and do the same here for the bottom of the upper part. So I'm following it pretty closely. You could tweak and adjust a little bit if you wanted, I suppose. Maybe do something a little bit more like that. And then with this one here, we could go a little bit more, something like that. So we can get it pretty close. The key is mainly where it's lining up, where it's moving into place. You want this to be as close to perfect as possible, right? So down here where we're going to be meeting up, we want this to be really, really as close to perfect as we can get it, just riding right into our other shape. All right, so there we go. We've created our first path. It looks good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the size of this path. So I'm going to open up my properties panel. Remember the width of our entire little donut shape, each of our individual rings, if you will, is 35 points. So we're going to go 35 points. And you can see we now have this little connector that's going to connect the yellow to the green if we wanted it to do that. I'm going to come over here and grab my regular selection arrow, and I'm going to select this entire path just like that. And we are going to use snap to point, I'm just realizing. We're going to go edit copy and then choose edit paste in front. So we got two copies of the orange path, right? You see it? You see it? We're going to go object transform, reflect. And I know we're moving quick here, but you know, better to move fast and use the pause key than be so boring that people use the X key. We're going to go reflect vertical axis. If I preview this, you can see we're flipping it right around. I'm going to hit OK. And what I'm interested in here is making sure that this point right here is going to line up exactly with the anchor point on our blue path here. And I'm going to do that by utilizing snap to point. So you want to make sure snap to point's turned on. Now, in order to use snap to point, you want to do two things. Number one, you want to begin with the regular selection tool, select your entire path. Then you need to switch to the direct selection tool and select the path point that you're snapping. So I'm going to click on this point and I'm just going to drag it over, and you'll see it'll snap right onto that anchor point and just get me an exact lock. And now we're flowing right through in both directions. In fact, what I'll do here is just change this to some other random color. Maybe actually I'll go with a green here, just so we can see there is our second path. So we've created 2 of the 3 shapes we need. Now I said the other shape we need is going from this point down over here to this guy. Now in order to make this a little easier, I'm just going to hide the orange path so I'm not accidentally clicking it and building off of it. Once again, grabbing my pen tool, maybe here we'll draw with a darker blue. And oh, why am I making this mistake again? Let's go with a pink. We got our blue guides. I'm going to grab my pen tool. I want to make sure I get the inner point. See, there's 2 points there. I want to make sure I begin on the inner point. Click, hold down shift. Let's pull down, and I'm going to pull right through this, find the point here. The pen tool with smart guides will snap onto it, and then just click and drag right through something sort of like, I don't know, maybe something about like that. I'm actually going to hide the stroke for a quick second because I want to adjust to this point here. So again, I'll grab my direct selection tool and I'm just going to adjust it. I want to make sure it follows the guide kind of as closely as it can. All right, just like that, I think will work for me. I'll go back, I'll add the stroke again, bump it up to 35 points, and there is that shape. So that's looking pretty good. We don't really need to worry about this whole tail end because we're going to be trimming that off in just a moment. But if I turn on my orange shape, basically you should have 3 shapes that look sort of kind of like this. Now here's where the attention to detail is really going to come in and play a strong role for us. Number one, we can shut off our guides group, and maybe I'll even drag that all the way down to the bottom because I think we're done with it at this point. But I'm just going to tuck it down there and keep it, nestle it away for a rainy day, so to speak. I want to select all of these paths, and I actually don't want them to be 35 points. I'm just illustrating the width of the sort of the donuts and how they're going to connect together. We want to knock 10 points off of this. We want these each to be 25 points, and I know that looks really bad. Doesn't look like it's meshing at all now, but it's going to have to do with the way we need to work with these paths and the strokes to make everything line up just perfectly. You'll see a little bit more of what I'm talking about in just a moment. Let's go ahead and expand all of these strokes to fills. So we're going to go expand. Yep, stroke to fill. We don't need to have fill checked on. You actually don't really need to even check fill off, but sometimes I just do it out of habit. So there we go. We have our 3 shapes just like that. And what I want to do at this point is begin filling these with what I need them to look like. So I'm going to hide the green and pink. I'm going to work with this, and I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and just say, hey, look, sample that donut, because that's what we're running into. Now, you can see it's given us the fill and the stroke, but it's literally given us the entire stroke. It's given us a 10-point stroke that's aligned to the inside. I actually want this to be aligned to center for these shapes, and you'll see why in a minute. You can see when I do that, though, look at that. It's lining up really nicely. Now, there's a little tail sticking out right there. We can take care of that in a second. But you can see that's lining up real nicely. Now, part of what we want is we actually want this yellow tail to look like it's tucking underneath the green circle. So here in the Layers panel, what I want to do is I want to drag this just on top of my yellow donut. Just like that. Now you can see we've got it nicely tucked underneath the green. That's looking good. Now, part of the reason that I aligned the stroke to center is because we obviously need to get rid of this little slashing thing across here, this horizontal line. We're going to do that by using the direct selection arrow. So deselect everything, and then with the direct selection arrow, just click right on that stretch of path. So you can see we haven't selected either of those anchors. What we've done is we've actually just selected that piece of path, and we can delete just that piece of path. Now, also check this out. This is attention to detail kind of stuff here. We're getting this little wonky looking piece of yellow, whatever that is. From my best understanding is that it's actually like just a little bit of the fill spilling past the edge of the stroke. Kind of annoying. It seems like it really should never happen, but alas, it does. The way we can fix this though is by clicking on the word stroke with that shape selected, click on the word stroke and just add the rounded cap. So the rounded cap, instead of cutting the stroke off right at the anchor point, is going to expand it a little beyond there, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, it does cover up that little bit for us. And now you can see if I zoom out, we have our first little shape perfectly nestled in there and looking like it's tucking under the green. Now we got to move on to a slightly more advanced piece, and that's going to be the piece here of the orange. Now, the piece coming out of the orange is actually going to run up and look like it's tucking underneath the yellow altogether. So let's go ahead and turn on what is the green shape for us. Let's select it, and we're going to sample using the eyedropper tool. We're going to grab the fill and stroke of our orange donut, and I'm once again going to hit stroke and say, yep, align that sucker center, just like that, looking good. I'm going to drag it all the way down now so it's beneath the yellow donut, just on top of the orange donut. This is why that layer stacking, remember I mentioned it before, was kind of important. Note, we got a little tail tail waggly boo sticking out up there. We don't want that to be there. And we also need to get rid of this horizontal. So once more, we're going to grab the direct selection. We're going to just select that piece of the path, delete it. And maybe if I round this off, it'll fix that. Maybe I need to adjust it a little bit. We'll see. Let's select stroke, give it the rounded cap. It got rid of the little orange overfill. Didn't do any good for me there. So what I'll probably do is actually just manually select that one anchor point right there. Let's lock up the yellow donut so we don't accidentally select it. Select that one anchor point and just use your arrow key and nudge it one click inward, right? So we're literally just moving the path a teeny tiny bit. And as long as it doesn't affect anything crazy down here, which it shouldn't because we have an anchor point locking us in, we should be all good. All right, so there we go. We now have our orange and our yellow. Again, if we zoom out, we're starting to build the intertwining effect. We got two more pieces that we need to adjust. One being we need to cut out a piece up here. The second being we need to give this little arm its freedom down here to attach to the larger blue cyan donut. Let's do that right now. So let's turn the pink back on, and there's our piece. And what we'll do here is grab our selection tool, grab that piece of pink, grab the eyedropper, sample our beautiful green donut. There we go. We're going to go stroke. We're going to say, hey, you know what? Align that sucker to the center just like that. And I think before I do any kind of deleting or messing this up, I want to cut this into place. So the idea is going to be that it looks like the green is tucking underneath our pink larger circle and joining up with this blue cyan circle. We're going to sell that effect by selecting this larger blue pink circle and copying it. So we're going to go edit, copy, and then I'm going to go edit, paste in front. And if I come down here on my layers panel, we got two copies of it. Well, I want to drag this upward. I'm going to drag it up all the way up here. Whoop, I don't want to group it up. I want to drag it up above my green, just like that. Then I'm going to select both this green piece and the blue purple circle, right? By just shift selecting both. And then I can go to my Pathfinder area of my properties panel. If you don't have this in your properties panel, you can always go Window, Pathfinder right there. And I'm going to select the triple dot and I'm going to say, hey, use the divide Pathfinder. And then I'm going to go object, ungroup, and I may need to ungroup a couple times, but nope, that did the trick. And then what I'm going to do is just begin selecting the pieces I don't want. The big extra piece of ring here, right? I don't want that. I can delete that. The piece of path right there sitting on top of it, making it look like a cartoon caricature. I don't want that. I don't need this extra empty path in the middle, so I can just delete that. And then in terms of the paths, which one do I want to keep? Well, I don't want the one down here on the bottom. I only want to keep this little piece here. So this guy right here, select it and delete it. Now with this, we're back to the same old issue that we had with the orange and yellow where we have the horizontal piece. So we grab our direct selection tool, of course. We select the little horizontal path, delete it, and we've got our little bit, see the little bit of green overfill. We wouldn't be what we're doing here if we didn't have the green overfill. So add that rounded cap. It takes care of that for us. And we now have the basis of our inner circles. Now what we need to do is make it look like our orange pink circle is running over this part right here of the blue pink circle. And the way I'm going to do that is by masking this blue pink circle out. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the top circle. This is going to be our mask. So we'll go edit copy. And then I'm going to move down here because I want to make sure I select the blue pink circle, right? Then I'm going to go to my transparency panel and I'm going to double click this blank thumbnail. That's going to add a layer mask. I'm going to select clip to unclip it. Really, I want it to be solid white. Then we're going to go edit, paste in front to paste that shape exactly back in place. I'm going to get rid of the stroke. We don't need the stroke making things complicated. And then as far as the gradient, we really don't want the gradient. We want solid black. So I'm going to go, yep, give me solid black. And you can see now it's looking like this shape is moving over our pink blue gradient. Now, again, a little problem, right? Can you see this? It looks like we almost have this weird pixelated funky looking edge where it's just a little bit of the background seeing through. So here's what I like to do in this case. I would select the mask and what I'm going to do is add a white stroke to it. So we're going to reveal a tiny bit of the blue circle on either side just to try to get this to blend together perfectly. So I'm going to say, hey, stroke, give me a white stroke. And I want 1 point might be too much. You can look at it. It actually doesn't look too bad, but you could even go a little less than 1 point, just whatever it takes to just cover that edge and make it look perfect, because perfect is what we want. Now I'm still working here in the opacity mask, so I would go back and just select my normal thumbnail, get back to my normal editing mode. And at this point, we've created the optical illusion. Now we can sell the optical illusion even better by applying a couple gradients here to our shapes and really making this look the way we want it to look. So let's do this, and then we'll add just a couple, just random, not really random, but just a couple dots and circles, and this effect will be completed here in no time flat. All right, what I want to do, grab my normal selection tool. Right here, I'm going to work with this yellow arm first. The idea is going to be that as it moves from this yellow down into the green circle where it connects sort of underneath this arm, this should be be turning green. So I want to get the green fill from this. And I can see there's my hex code, but my fill is in the foreground, or my stroke is in the foreground. So that's actually the hex code for my fill or my stroke. I want to select the fill. There's the hex code I want. I'm going to double click that and copy it, Command or Control C. Now I'm going to go back to this shape. And what I want to do is I'm going to drag the fill right into my gradient, right? You can see how it's going to say, yep, you want to add this as a color to the gradient? Yes, I do. I want to drag the pink out of there. I want the yellow to be on this side. Then I'm going to double click on my orange color stop and I'm going to paste in the hex code that we just had. So it's that green. And you can see we're getting that green down there now. At this point, I can just adjust my midpoint or whatever it takes to really make this look right. Now, if we really want to see this, maybe I'll fill it with a blue and you can see that we're getting that crazy blue down there, right? So maybe we'll use this actually and we'll just adjust the angle a little bit so it's more sort of like that. -30 looks like it'll work good. Drag that blue color out of there and just throw that green in there. And all you want to do is make sure that by the time it gets up to the yellow of our circle, it's looking right? It looks like it blends in perfectly. That's great. And it's beginning to turn green as it heads toward the green. Now for the green, we want this to be turning into this cyan color. So let's grab the hex code of our cyan right here. So I'll just copy that sucker to my clipboard. Go back here to our little tiny shape. Drag the green color over to the gradient. Get rid of the blue. We've got our green. And over here, well, actually, we probably have our cyan right there, right? So what I'm going to do is with this color, I'm going to make it that big, really easy to see blue. And I'm just going to go into my angle area, use Shift and the up or down arrow keys, and just begin rotating the gradient around until I see something that I like in terms of the angle. So probably something like -110 would be good. I can drag that blue out of there. Just leave that really light cyan green color and feed it right into the green. And you can see now it looks like we begin at the green, we flow around, and we begin turning cyan. And of course, by that point, we're fully cyan. And last but not least, we may want to do this here with the orange heading into the yellow. So of course, we can do that here. What I want to do is grab the hex code for the yellow. I can't click on the yellow because I locked that layer up. Let's unlock that. There we go. There's the yellow I want. Let's grab that hex code. Cool. Let's go back here, select this orange. We're going to drag this into our gradient, dump that crazy blue, and then I'm actually going to leave that cyan so I can get an angle. I'm going to click to add another color stop, double click on it, paste in the hex code for our yellow, and there we go. And now what I want is, you can see this shape extends all the way up here. So my cyan and yellow color are way up here. They're hidden. I want to be seeing some of that cyan and yellow here. So I need to pull the yellow way back, pull the cyan back as well. All right, I'm going to begin shifting angles here, kind of something like that. I'm going to get rid of that cyan color, of course, because we just want this to be orange heading into yellow. That probably looks decent, just like that. So it looks like we've got orange wrapping right around. And you could really go here and make even the orange here of this color, of this donut, excuse me. You could give it a little pinky fade right up here because it kind of looks like it should be meeting up with the pink down here. So you could throw a gradient in there and tweak and adjust it and just put a very little bit of pink up into that corner just to sell the effect a little bit. And you can go through and begin adding gradients all over this to really sell the effect that this is just weaving and intertwining all through what we've got going on here. All right, looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and grab the ellipse tool, and I'm going to click a single time. I am going to add a 12 by 12 ellipse, something very small. I'm going to flip my fill and my stroke color. So the fill is just that 4E4C71, really dark, almost navy blue. Select the stroke here in my toolbar area and just hit the little slash icon to get rid of it. And now I'm going to drag this little shape and move it as close to the middle of this little circle as I can, just so it looks like it's aligned right up there in the center. Let me try dragging it in again, and right about there. It looks pretty close. It looks just off, like annoyingly off. Let me just try again. Maybe it's snapping me into the middle and not allowing me to make it look bad or something. All right, we're just going to live with that. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to transform this. So I'm going to go Effect, Transform. I'm going to turn Preview on, and you can see with that same -59, 102 pixel, it's going to place the second dot exactly in the middle of our bottom left circle. So I'll hit OK, and here I need to say Object, Expand Appearance, and then of course Object, Ungroup. So we've got now 2 dots. Again, select the top center dot. We're going to go Effect, Transform, and here I'm just going to get rid of the -59, make it +59. If we preview it, boom, there's another dot. Hit OK. Once more, we're going to go Object, Expand Appearance, and Object, Ungroup, and now we have 3 dots. Very cool. And last but not least, I'm going to click and add one more ellipse. This is going to be a 24 by 24 pixel ellipse. I'm going to flip the fill and the stroke. So I'm going to say, give me that navy stroke, and I'm going to make the stroke like, let's go maybe 10 point, something like that. That looks kind of cool. And what I'll do here is I'm going to drag this over and kind of place it so it's almost touching, just like that. I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and drag a copy of this over here, again, so it's almost touching. And then I'm going to Alt or Option, drag a copy down here to the center. And again, I'm just going to adjust this so it's almost touching. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and hit the down arrow key maybe once. And then over here for these, I'll hold down Shift, hit the right arrow key once, twice, and then up once. And then what did I do? So I'm going to hold down Shift and hit the left arrow key 1, 2, and then up 1. Whoop, that was down 1, up 1, something like that. And there we go. Maybe I'll bump this down 1 more, something like that. And you can see we've got this kind of cool little effect that we've created. Now, one thing that I do need to show you, and this is really, really important before you close the video out, if you do create this and you say, oh, this is a cool little piece of artwork, I got my colors flowing exactly how I like them, now I need to add it to another project I'm working on. Well, number one, select it all and just go Object Group, just to get it all together so we can just click anywhere and drag it and move it around so we're not messing it up. But also, watch what happens. Let's hold down Shift and Option and just drag this and make it bigger. It looks really, really bad, right? Everything's all messed up. It's all out of place. If you need to scale this up or down, you don't want to do it using the bounding box. What you want to do is go Object, Transform, Scale, because here you have the option not only to scale, let's say maybe 200%, right? Double it up, but also you can say, look, go ahead and scale those strokes for me. And when you do that, you're going to maintain your entire effect through and through for your little Trinity spiraled circle that we've created right here in Adobe Illustrator. All right, well, there you have it. You can see we created the effect. Like I said, it's like a lot of little stuff, but it combines to create one really big, cool effect. Again, a link to check out the artist and all of her work is down in the bio of this video. I highly recommend you check it out. Show her a little bit of love for creating this amazing artwork that we were able to sort of copy and duplicate today and figure out how we would create it here in Illustrator. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss any Illustrator or graphic design or Photoshop or really any videos that I create here on the channel in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, for creating this effect and playing with gradients and strokes and shapes and transforming and sizing and duplicating and copying and lining up and snapping to stinking points. For all that and so much more, that's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials every day. Also, buy my course. It helps us do what we do, and this channel is supported by viewers just like you. You can also just click the thumbnail and watch another video from this channel. See you next time, guys.